Hello, this is Dan Farisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Emerald. Thank you so much for joining us today for this informative webinar presentation, Video Walls in 2025, A Changing Landscape. We really appreciate having Matthew Tibbett, Senior Product Manager with Datapath, here today to inform us about video walls and what we're seeing, what he is seeing out in the world. Of course, video walls are highly topical. We're hearing about them all the time. They're being deployed more and more. And Datapath naturally is a market leader. Hence, we invited Matthew on. Thank you so much, Matthew, for joining us today and sharing some of your insights. I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation.
Hi, Dan, and hello to everybody. Yes, thank you very much for having us. I'm looking forward to it.
So before we get into the meat of the conversation, I did want to talk a little bit about the platform that you have before you for those who may not be familiar with On24. So let's go over some of those housekeeping items quickly. If you take a look at the platform today, the console you're looking at can be completely customized. You can move and resize windows. You can make videos or slides larger or smaller as you like. You're also going to find an array of interactive tools as part of this experience. For example, you're going to see a media player button that controls your video and your volume. You're going to be able to submit questions via a Q&A box widget, and our presenters will try to answer as many as we can via the Q&A text function throughout the presentation. There's also a resource list and a downloads box, and you can access that. You can get your slides, any other related resources from our sponsor and presenter, Datapath. Perhaps the most important is our survey icon, which you can click so you can share feedback at any point during the session. Your input is extremely valuable to us. We really appreciate it. Before logging off today, please do make sure you take a moment to share your feedback so we can make events like this even more impactful, even more beneficial in the future. If you have any follow-up questions or need help with your experience during this live presentation, just present the help icon, or press the help icon rather, and you can get further guidance. You'll also be able to expand the media player located in the upper right-hand corner so you can see speakers more clearly. Finally, I'll note that this content will be live on commercialintegrator.com for months and months to come, so you can refresh yourself about this critical information anytime you would like. It's going to have an opportunity to share with your colleagues, your friends, anyone else who you think would benefit from this informative presentation that Matthew is about to deliver. Again, I want to thank Matthew Tibbett, who is Senior Product Manager with Datapath, for being here today. And are you ready to get started? Get right into it, Matthew?
Absolutely. Carry on.
Excellent. So here's my first question. From a technological perspective, how would you say both Datapath and you personally have seen video walls change over the last few years and into 2025? Do you feel like display technology is evolving rapidly? What would you say that you've kind of noticed in the industry when it comes to display technologies and video walls?
Yeah, it's been very interesting over my career at Datapath has spanned, over 12 years now. More recently, we've seen this move to LED continues apace. You and I meet at trade shows, and we see the booths of some of the LED giants just become more and more impressive with more and more pixels, and that's what we're seeing get adopted into these control room environments. Not only that, rather than having the smaller format LCDs, we see a lot of customers complement their LEDs with the large format LCD where they want perhaps some greater pixel density. Those environments where we do have LED, customers are becoming much more discerning about the pixel density based on the type of content they want to display, whether it's IPTV or CCTV cameras, outputs from SCADA or web-based content. They're checking out really what the quality and the pixel pitch is going to give them, given various viewing distances in their control room, who needs to see them, and what time. In terms of what's displayed on those walls, of course, everything's moving towards IP, and Atria and Datapath are no exceptions. We've seen a real trend in the market that the big wall, the wall in front of all of the operators, is perhaps getting fewer pixels because of LED. It's getting smaller, but I don't think it's smaller because people are necessarily saving money, but it's because there are more pixels at the operator workstation. Operator workstations have changed perhaps more than any other sort of user technology in that space. They've gone from maybe one screen to multiple 4K surfaces onto which you can place so much data that that operator can use in that control room environment. And it's just really interesting to see the sort of the pace of change within this control room market and how we at Datapath can hopefully keep our noses ahead of it.
Well, you gave me a lot of great information there, Matthew, and I certainly agree with you about the level of discernment and the level of expectations. I think it's rising every day, and you certainly, as an industry leader at Datapath, are right at the tip of the spear of making sure that you're meeting those rising expectations. What might have sufficed 5 or 10 years ago clearly is not going to suffice today. And it's also interesting, as you say, just the profusion of pixels across both the workstation and in front of the operators. And again, Datapath is, of course, positioning itself to make sure that those command and control rooms are exactly as they need to be so those operators are maximally effective. So let's move on to the next area of inquiry. I'd like to know a little bit about, Datapath, of course, being known for building powerful video wall controllers, but I'm interested in your video wall management technology. In simple terms, what does this enable a user of your technology to do?
Thanks. Yes. It allows that operator or an administrator or controller of video walls to really do more than we ever offered before. In pre-Atria days, baseband video would be delivered to a video wall controller and then displayed on that large format video wall. But as we said just now, the operator workstation is a miniature video wall in its own right, given the number of pixels it's got on there. So what we wanted to do was build a visualization system that allowed any of those disparate, intricate pieces of information that are available on or within an environment that a control room operates, and have those be delivered to any endpoint within the reasonable scope of your control room, to any operator, to any video wall, or to any display board or individual monitor where that information gets displayed. And we did that using Atria. And if you forgive me, we do have some slides here that I'd like to go through to do that, because it is our complete solution for the design, management, and operation of control rooms, whether they be large ones or medium or small and quite boutique, if you like. As I've talked about, the sort of the data growth and the data volumes available to the operator has grown exponentially. The amount of pixels that they can take advantage of to make sure they've got the right information in front of them is very important. And this leads to this concept of a personal video wall almost. And how we've done that is by developing an AV over IP solution that provides that anything, anywhere mantra that we have at Datapath. Any source is capable of being delivered to any of the endpoints in as fast a manner as possible with the lowest latency, and have that ability to control that source, which means that operators no longer need, and I see this when I go to control rooms, 3, 4, 5 different computers kind of squirreled away under their desks. It is all centrally managed. It is a single interface that rules the whole environment. It's very easy for an administrator to set up and configure all of those walls and all of those workstations. It can store all the sources, the templates, and the layouts, because we always think of consistency in control rooms. You want information to be presented in a consistent manner, irrespective of the endpoint where it ends up. On my big video wall, I want all of my sources to be arranged in a certain manner because it makes sense to me. But I want that same arrangement to be available to my end user, my operator, who has that same information and needs to make those same decisions. So being able to centrally manage all of this is very important. But dedicated workstations do put that operator first. We want to make the easiest user interfaces possible. I'm very aware as a product manager that the users of our software have a bigger job to do than drive video wall software. They're security officers, they are in control of power stations or city networks or airports and all of the verticals in between those industries. I don't want to interrupt their job. I talk to blue light services. I'm very cognizant that when an emergency happens, I need to be a very soft touch in this environment. So we want to make interfaces that lend themselves for usefulness, but aren't in a complex that need extra training and another degree in video wall management. It all has to be secure, so it has to be enterprise-grade security. In Atria, it is AES encrypted with rolling keys, so it is super secure from end to end, from the point of capture at the transmitter end to the point of delivery to the video wall controller or to the workstation or just to the receiver. All of that's fully encrypted, so we are super secure, because obviously a lot of these environments are very security conscious in today's modern world, where IP and the internet mix with the hard realities of control room. And of course, underpinning all of our technology here is this KVM control. So we say instant because it's within a frame or two. Instant KVM control of sources with one control. That surface with that arrangement that I explained earlier is just a series of applications on your desktop, which means you can click through to any of those sources and make the changes that your environment require. Anything like those is very easy. Anything anywhere does mean you can push from your workstation to a video wall, and that video wall might be the one in front of you for team collaboration. Equally, in an emergency situation or a situation that needs a dedicated team to come together, I can send that content into the briefing room, the crisis room, the emergency center, whatever name that room has, but it's a separate location. I can deliver content to it, which means that team get to see real-time information. They're not taking notes about a situation, then having to play catch-up all the time. They're getting the real-time information. As I said, anything, anywhere, and as this kind of graphic shows you, the ability for a workstation and a wall to seamlessly interact to ensure that consistent information gets put up anywhere you like.
Really informative stuff, Matthew. And I have to say, I love your focus, Datapath's longstanding focus on operator empowerment, operator ease of use, because when you're thinking about these command and control environments, mission critical environments, you have to make the operator's life easy, right? You can't make the technology a hurdle or an encumbrance. It has to be intuitive. It has to be navigable. It has to be easy to react, because in some of these situations, lives can be on the line, property can be on the line, and seconds can count. And if it's difficult, if it's an encumbrance, if it's cumbersome to deal with, or stuff is not where you expect it to be, not where it was last time, that's going to make you a much less effective operator, isn't it?
It is. And at that point, me as Datapath, I'm encumbering people rather than helping them. I'm not doing my job as a provider of solutions for these workflows that these organizations have. And it's emergencies scenarios are obviously a keen example. I always think, though, that even in perhaps less critical environments that are important, but you might have the same piece of software does production line 1, production line 2, and production line 3, and that software always looks the same. You don't know, well, you look at which production line you're looking at, because it's the same piece of SCADA that's driving it. It's color-coded the same. Again, having that consistency to be able to put things in a consistent manner, so that even if you just happen to be walking past a video wall, you get some instant recognition about what you're seeing, and therefore your decision-making process, hopefully, can be a little shorter.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next area of inquiry, which is presenting information to multiple users. Within a typical application, can you explain how that is done? Information is presented to multiple users. Are there certain triggers to ensure that it's available at the right time?
Yeah, I think there's two things here. So firstly, with Atria and Datapath, all of our transmission is multicast. So by its very nature, it is available to multiple endpoints simultaneously. When you talk about triggers, though, I think we're moving now towards a bit more of automation. Given, as we said at the beginning, there is this exponential growth of data within that control room environment, operators I think, have perhaps more things to look at than it is capable of seeing at any given time. And it's useful to be able to have triggers and automation within this system that gives them the right information and presents it to them, whether it's at a workstation or a wall. And Atria can perform some of these actions through our new Atria events engine that we've been developing recently. At its basic, it's an events engine that you've seen perhaps in other solutions in the market. On a Monday morning at 9 a.m., open up this particular scenario and layout file. We can offer the user the ability to create their own buttons. So they are able to create buttons that make sense to their particular job. And because of user rights management, those buttons follow them around. So it doesn't really matter where they sit on any given day. They can have the same buttons that they use to drive video walls in their workstations. However, I think Atria Events has a lot more power than that. As part of that automation, Atria Events can listen for things. Within Atria, one of the things it can listen for is whether one of the cables has come out of the capture card in our video wall controller, or a source machine has gone offline. We will listen for a no signal event, and then we can respond to it. And that response could be send an email, send a message, put a description on screen for the operator to see or the administrator to see. Equally, it could do something that is a bit more clever, a bit more joined up thinking. So, for example, you could have a backup source, source one and source one backup. If source one goes offline for whatever reason, it loses power, the cable gets disconnected, it loses connection in some way to our transmitters. Atria Events can recognize that event and then determine that we need to switch to the backup. And automatically, Atria Events will look at what's on screen. Is the source that has gone offline gone off on screen? And if so, I'm going to change it to my backup source. And all of that happens in a lot less time than it took me to describe it. But it does show that we can start listening to events, and the sorts of events that we can listen to, and I've got them written down, so excuse me for reading them out. SNMP traps, obviously an industry standard in being able to recognize when a thing has happened. But MQTT, TCP, WebSockets, we can react to API calls, we can make API calls. And this means that Atria and Datapath can sit within an environment in the middle and then listen for third-party incidents. A application can have an error or view an error, and then it can tell Atria. We can listen for that trigger and then do something, which could be something as simple as put it on the wall. Put that source on the wall because an operator needs to see it. We can put a red border around that source on the video wall because it's now of critical importance. We can make that border flash because it's very important. We can do all of those things. We can interact with those third-party devices, and this is where we look to integrators to work out how we do all of this together. But we can get those triggers and a level of automation that means even more than before, those operators are presented with the right information at the right time. Because a lot of the time the day's all going fine, nothing's happening, and then some alarms go off because something within their environment is kind of off kilter. Atria Events, I'll be happy to show you down at Infocom, of course. Wherever we show Atria now, this is going to be central to our showing of the technology. But I think that really is that level of automation that we can now program into Atria is going to be something that's very key for us moving forward, talking to integrators and then subsequently end users to find out what they want. I think one good example, if I may, is a blue light service in Europe here said that in a very serious emergency, they would like to be able to put up a layout file on the video wall. They would like to dim the lights of their control room so it kind of goes into focus mode. They'd also like a red light to be put on in the corridor outside to show that any passerbys, you're not allowed in the control room, they're in an emergency. And this is, something serious happens within a city or those sorts of citywide issues. And we said, yeah, we can program all of those things through Atria events as long as those third-party pieces of equipment can talk to us in any number of pretty standard ways. We can then talk to them to say, an emergency is happening, turn the light red in the corridor, turn the lights in the room down, close the curtains, put up the right cameras from the incident onto the video wall, all in an automated, joined up thinking kind of way.
I have to say, Matthew, that level of automation is truly impressive, and I look forward to seeing it for myself at Infocom if I'm able to get to you, because I imagine the integrators are going to be crowding to learn more about this. So if you have time for me, I can't wait to get a demo there because it sounds really exciting, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. So as we begin to wind down the conversation, I would like to talk a little bit more about Atria. Obviously, when I think about control room solutions over the last 4 years or so, Atria has been the first thing that pops into my mind. So as product manager of that control room solution, I'm interested how video wall management technology has developed in those 4 years since Atria launched, specifically in those critical control room applications.
I think we're becoming much more of the central hub, or at least that's where I see us being positioned. As I say, we're at the fingertips of the operator. They're able to receive data to themselves, so the correct visual cues. There's a level of automation that can drive what they get to see and how they get to see it. And we can, from there, deliver content, not only to video walls, but also, to side walls, side rooms, crisis rooms, and other places in the environment where that data is needed. And we're kind of in the middle of all that. We're that central hub of the visualization data. I don't pretend to try and get involved with the SCADA side or the day-to-day activities of the whichever environment we happen to be installed in. But we are, central to that control room to make sure that operator gets the right thing at the right time, and they can put it in front of the right colleague at the right time as well.
I don't think there's any doubt you are truly central to today's control room. Do you have any closing thoughts, Matthew? Anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wind the conversation down?
I think really, if any of you are coming to Infocom, I'd love to be able to give you a demo of Atria and other technologies that Datapath do. Of course, whilst we are central to that control room environment, we make a wide range of capture cards for other environments as well. We've got some new video wall processors that you might be interested in viewing. And of course, we've got that Atria events engine where we'll try to show off as much third-party integration as we can, given the nature of trade shows. But we look forward to seeing you all there.
Look forward to seeing you as well. Looking forward to getting some demos of my own. As always, thank you so much, Matthew Tibbett from Datapath, for joining us today and giving us really great insights about Atria and all the other great stuff that you are working on and that you'll be showcasing in Orlando this June at Infocom.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Farisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Emerald. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar presentation. I hope that we've been able to answer your questions in the Q&A text function. We'll continue to do that in the closing moments or so of this webinar, answering by text in the Q&A box. Please do visit commercialintegrator.com. In the days and weeks and months ahead. This webinar will live in pretty much perpetuity on our website on demand. So if there are others in your organization who you feel would benefit from this information, by all means, share the link with them. It should be online within 24 hours or so of you watching this, and you can watch it and your colleagues can watch it again and again. And please do fill out that survey if you've not done so already, so that we and our partners at Datapath can make these conversations, these presentations, even more impactful, even more informative for you. We very much value the time investment for you being here, and we hope you've enjoyed the conversation. Once again, Matthew, thank you so much for a really informative chat, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.